I kind of look at three things that I think are important, especially as we think about moms: listening, laboring, and learning. You know, there's some ideas about moms that are somehow different. Back when I was a kid, that a mom might tell you, "Stop making that face. Your face will freeze like that." You ever get told that? Stop doing that. Now, instead of saying your face will freeze like that, they say, "Stop doing that. You're going to need Botox." Just modern changes. Some other changes that might happen. Sometimes we look at Mother's Day and we think Mother's Day is valuable, and it is, and we look at and kind of begin to gauge, and I see women do this a lot. They begin to gauge, how good a mom am I? Well, what do you use as a gauge? How do you come up with a gauge to figure out who's a good mom and who isn't? So many times people look at children and say, if your child is good, you must have been a good mom or a good dad. I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I believe there's great influence that a mom or dad can put in, but sometimes we have individual responsibility to make those stances. I did think of these, though. See, it seems like moms think of or have common thoughts, these common thoughts. One of the common thoughts that moms have is that they're responsible for everything. See, we don't like to say that out loud, do we? But they do. They feel like that everything kind of falls to them. And if you're not sure of that, just ask them to help you find something you couldn't find. And then they look where you looked and find it. You're not laughing about that. Somebody in particular is not laughing about it. No. Sorry. Another thing that might moms seem to believe or to feel is they feel like that they're underappreciated. And I really believe that's true. In today's day and time, I don't believe that moms are as appreciated as they should be. There should be more than just one day. There's also, it seems to be, that mothers seem to feel like that they need to provide everything for their child. Every opportunity, every involvement, every event. So it led me to think about what would be the picture of a bad mom. And so I came up with 4. There's a longer list, but I kind of kept these brief. I wanted to keep them brief. One that, and I have to have a disclaimer, because one that did not make it, you probably would think would be on there. Clara Hitler did not make it to my list. The reason being, believe it or not, she was a devout and caring person. She cared for her son. She cared for her family. She cared for, in spite of, I don't know, am I going to get censored since I'm on Facebook? I don't know. Believe it or not, she was married to a drunk bureaucrat, governmental bureaucrat, and he was abusive to Adolf, abusive to her. He was abusive in every way, and for all accounts that I could read, she was a great woman. Always kind, always compassionate. So she didn't make the list as far as bad moms. There's one that made the list, though, that's pretty interesting. Mary Ball Washington, George's mom. Now, George's mom was kind of interesting. You would think he's the father of our nation, and he did a lot of great things. He was trying to hold the revolution together, and lots of tragedy with wars and weather and just harsh conditions. The funny thing is, she constantly talked bad about the United States and her son, the president. She talked so bad about him and about the United States that those who were the French military officers in Virginia where she lived, they thought she was an ally. They thought and seemed to understand that she was on their side. She complained so much that she went to the Virginia legislature and got welfare because she considered herself destitute. Now, have you ever been to see her home that George bought her, gave her? It's still around today. You can take a tour of it. He did pretty much everything for her, but she was never satisfied. Kind of weird. My number 2 person is Arizona Donnie Barker, a.k.a. Ma Barker. She had a kind of an interesting enterprise. She had some sons, and in the Missouri, where she lived, the FBI's public enemy made her, as J. Edgar Hoover said, called her the most vicious, dangerous, resourceful criminal brain of the last decade. Great mom, huh? She was pretty good, and she got Herman, Lloyd, Fred, and Arthur Barker all part of the criminal family. Pretty much out of diapers, they began to have criminal mischief, or there was a few things like a murder, theft, kidnapping, armed robbery, bank holdups. They just kind of kept the family business going. It was tough times. In the 30s, you're talking about depression. Never mind. Lots going on. In the end, though, on January 16th, 1935, she ended up getting in a shootout with the FBI, and she was killed, and her Thompson machine gun laying to her side. You can kind of see graphic pictures of that if you want to look it up. Where am I at? Number 3? Am I at number 3? Okay. Mary Ann Cotton. You probably won't remember her. She's kind of an outreach one here. She lived in Britain, in the UK. She poisoned and killed 11 of her 13 children, all 4 of her husbands, 2 lovers, and 2 other people, all for insurance money. Arsenic was kind of her weapon of choice. In all, she killed 21 people before Scotland Yard caught her and stopped her. Not really a picture poster of Mother of the Year, probably. Last one, I won't go into great detail of her, but the last one is Zerelda Elizabeth Cole James Sims Samuel. That's a lot to say, isn't it? Where's my piece of paper about her? She's got a lot that I wanted to share with you. You probably know her by a different name. She was Frank and Jesse's mom. Might have heard a little bit about them. They grew up. Do what?
I'm related to her.
Are you really? Well, that's pretty good. She was also related to the Cole Younger gang, which was an outlaw group. Her father died when she was small, forcing her to live with her grandmother, and then the mom remarried to a saloon owner. And then as soon as Zerelda got old enough, she kind of hated her stepfather. As soon as she got old enough at 16, she got out of the house and married husband Robert James. He was a hemp farmer and, ironically, a Baptist preacher. Oh, you didn't know that? Yeah, kind of interesting. And they had 2 sons, Frank and Jesse. And then as they got a little bit older, unfortunately, though, her husband died, and she quickly remarried. The theory is that he ran off and went to California for the gold rush, and somewhere out there he died. She quickly remarried, but it was an unhappy reunion. Husband number 2 disliked Frank and Jesse and allegedly tormented them, treated them badly. The problem was soon resolved, though, because he got thrown from a horse and killed, and so she could move on to husband number 3. You're not really enjoying this as much as I did. Anyway, Zerelda married husband number 3, a quiet, passive man, described as standing in the shadow of his outspoken and forceful wife. Maybe he learned something in there. She was supposedly very, very tough. When the Civil War broke out, James Samuel and the blended family kind of moved up toward Missouri. And when the Pinkerton agency sent detectives to northwest Missouri to catch the gang, they actually came upon them and were warned before they got there. They said, if the boys don't kill you, the old lady will. Be careful. They went to the house on January 25th, 1875, and just to make sure that they had the upper hand, they threw an incendiary device through the window. It exploded and blew one arm off of Zerelda. Killed their youngest son, who happened to be the only innocent one in kind of all this shenanigans. Eventually, Jesse and Frank go off, and they're fighting in the war. Oh, when the troops come through, the northern troops come through, they hang husband number 3. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which side you're on, they didn't do it right, and he didn't die. So he did live, but it made Zerelda even more bitter. And then, when things really fell apart, she decided that she needed to make money because Frank and Jesse had gone off and they were being chased and they were having troubles and the family business was going sideways. And so she took the family home and decided that she would charge 50 cents per tour per person to come through the house. You could see everything. Well, that really wasn't making enough money. And as moms, sometimes you got to be enterprising, right? So she decided that she would go out and buy junk or rusty guns and just say that they were Frank or Jesse's. And she'd sell them. And now there are a lot of aficionados who collect guns who probably have just a gun. Not Frank or Jesse's. Kind of interesting, though, as you think about when we go through life and when we do things in life and we're trying to figure out what's a good mom or a bad mom, you could probably blame several of those and say, well, their kids turned out the way they did because of the mom, right? And maybe there's some great influence there in a good way and somewhat in a bad way. But my point of this is, do you know that eventually we all have to make a stand? There is no mom who gets it perfect. And if you feel like you have beat yourself up because of mistakes in the past, I'd encourage you to take those mistakes to God. Lay them at His feet and walk away. There is no perfect mom. When God gives us the chance, just like He's talking about in Psalms here, to own up to and take responsibility for our own actions, it's not just for moms, it's for all of us. To take the steps that are necessary. The psalmist affirms the reality of laboring and prospering when you walk with God. See, the problem might not have been here the influence just of the moms. It might have been that they chose not to walk with God. Choosing not to walk with God, no matter how much you love someone, will not fix your life eternally. That's hard for us to imagine. Because we get the idea that moms do what's right. Moms sacrifice. Moms they're special. And they are. And they are. But we should get the feeling of joy and excitement at the opportunity God gives us to be a part, not only in our children's lives, but in the lives of those around us. There's a lot to be excited about. A lot to have joy about. But how do we do that? How do we make sure that we're taking the right steps? I bet if you were to ask any of those moms, were they making the right choices? They would have said, probably yes. They would have said, we're doing what we got to do. We're making our way. I don't know what they would have said, but it would have been interesting to know. But if I wanted to make sure that I was doing the things right, I'd want to know, first of all, the foundation must be secure. I got to do things based on something that's going to stand the test of time, the test of events. Because I don't know about you, but we can look at that and they say, well, that's way back then. I could have went down the list of all the things in current times. And not just of moms. All of us. Verses 1 and 2 of chapter 1, 127th chapter of Psalms says this. Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. Unless the Lord guards the city, the watchman stays awake in vain. It is vain for you to rise up early, to sit up late, to eat the bread of sorrows, for so He gives His beloved sheep. Isn't it amazing? That's what we think of, though. We think we can handle everything or take care of everything if we just are more diligent. That's why we stay up late when our kids come home late. That's also why we don't kill them when they come home late. Because somehow we want to be more diligent. It's saying here, though, that God is the author and builder of the house. Do you see that? Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. See, the problem might be, no, it's not might be. The problem is we haven't acknowledged that God is the author and builder of the house, the home. He set things up to be a particular way. Man and woman coming together to be married, to create a home. This is going to really kind of shock you, I'm sure, but you probably know this deep down. Do you know that God set up the home, the house, as the institution that He would work through? He designed it that way. He even pictures us as being His bridegroom. He wants things to be that way. Do you know what's the number one thing being under attack right now in our world? The home. The family structure. Don't buy into it. Don't back away from God being the author and builder of the house. God tells you point blank, it will not last. It will bring you torment and pain. And there are lots of people in our world today who are struggling with the decisions their children are making, or the decisions they've made, or the way that the world's going, and they are frantic because they have never said, God, you are the foundation, and my foundation is secure in you. See, until God is made the head of the family, all attempts will fail. You're like, well, we're good people. We can get some things right. You can get some things right for a little while. But you know what I figured out early on in our married life, in our home life? I don't want to rely on my best effort. I don't want to rely on my best guess. I want to rely on God, the author and the giver, and the foundational block for the family. You know the weird thing about this is that same philosophy works in everything, not just the family. Make God the foundational thing in whatever you're doing, and it'll work. Make God somewhere else in the foundational process. Have you ever heard the term that God is a jealous God? You know what he's saying there? Build the other house. Go ahead. I'll disrupt it. I'll stun its growth. I'll make it full of torment. The second thing is the father must be supported. Verse 3. Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward. He's saying that the children are a heritage. They're an heirloom. Do you know what an heirloom is? An heirloom is something that's passed on from one family member to another, right? That children are an heirloom, an inheritance from God. So, just so we're all on the same page, help me out. Who owned them first?
God.
Without God, what do you have? You don't have them. You don't have anything. Right? So when he says that they're the heirloom, they're the inheritance, the heritage from the Lord, he's saying that God has gifted you with that. And if you have a heritage, listen to me, if you have a heritage or a legacy, it won't be of your own accord. You know, a lot of those that I read earlier were notorious people, right? I don't want to be notorious. I want to be known. I want to be known by God. And I'd kind of like people to know me in reference or in light of God. Verse 4 and 5. This will sound really strange, and if you looked at your bulletin, you're probably thinking, what in the world does that mean? The follow-through must be surrendered. Well, how do you follow through on something if you surrender? If you give up and don't participate, how does that work out? Well, I'm glad you asked. Verse 4. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior, so are the children of one's youth. Happy is the man who has his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but shall speak with their enemies in the gate. See, what he's saying is, and he gives a reference of the arrow. He says, like arrows in the hand of a warrior, so are the children of one's youth. He's saying, this arrow is sent by the archer, released to go where the archer intends. Right? So when an archer, I'm not talking about what we actually hit. If you ever bow hunted or you're an archer, sometimes you don't hit. Oh, okay, maybe it's just me. Sometimes I don't hit exactly where I'm aiming. I want to hit there. But do you know that God is the perfect archer? And when he sets things in place, he not only can release the arrow as he intends, but it will strike exactly where he intends. Now let's keep this in the reference of children, of us as individuals. God is saying that he is the archer, and where he intends for that arrow to go, it will go there. You're like, well, what's the big deal about that? Well, the big deal is God's assuring me that things are going to work out. See, you may not be in this position, but I know a lot of people who are in a position where their children are being rebellious. They've chosen different paths. And sometimes heartache and pain comes with that. And somewhere at that point, we've got to know and understand that the follow-through must be surrendered. I've got to give it up. I can't be grabbing at the arrows. I can't be trying to deflect them in areas that I want them to go to, that I think's best. I got to sit back and let God shoot the arrow and let it land as He says. And do you know that's the hardest thing in the world? Man, it's so hard. Because sometimes our children, sometimes those that we love, sometimes we ourselves don't make choices that lead us as we should go. But I must admit to you, there really isn't anything, when it comes to archery, there isn't anything more beautiful than an arrow that travels in beautiful flight and strikes exactly where it's supposed to. It's like the mythical unicorn of a great golf shot. You hear about them. They're out there somewhere. But they don't happen very often. Most of the time it doesn't happen very often because we get overwhelmed and instead of surrendering. See, I can get overwhelmed pretty quick, especially when I see my kids hurting. Especially when I see them struggling. Especially when I see them make that third mistake that they made over and over again before. See, children are to be the arrows in the hand of the warrior. Who's the one fighting the battle? Who's the warrior? God. He's the one who's already worked it out. What does that mean? Well, quite bluntly, it means don't take the arrow out of God's quiver. Don't take them away from church. Don't take them away from your prayer. Don't take them away from covering them in Scripture. Learn, lead, and labor with the things that make the difference. We can't cast a wand over Mother's Day and say, everything's great. We'll just put on a smile and everything's perfect. Sometimes it's not, and that's okay. Because we're here with each other. And most of all, we're here with Him. See, joy should come in the reality of God's will coming to fruition. Happy is the man, verse 5 tells us, who has his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but shall speak with their enemies in the gate. They shall land as God intended. It shall end up as God has directed. See, I don't know about you, but sometimes I come to these events these days, and I got to admit, Mother's Day is really, really, really hard for me. I just, as a kid, I didn't have a good relationship with my mom. My mom was not very nice. There's a lot of things about my mom that I look at and I think, and it's hard to get excited about Mother's Day. I had somebody say something to me. I shouldn't even bring that up. Never mind. I had somebody say something to me not too long ago. It popped in my head, but I'm not going to share it. Sorry. I got down that road and I can't go to there. But what I am going to do is, until I married Karen, I didn't know what a mom did. I didn't see behind the scenes and see her broken heart or see her love and her tenderness for her children or her grandchildren. I thought all moms were like mine. Most of the time I didn't think my mom liked me. Well, actually, most of the time she didn't like me. But you got to base things on what you're exposed to. And through seeing her deal with her kids, with our kids, I got to see what a mom does. See, don't base everything that's going on in your life based on what you yourself have had to go through, or you yourself had an opportunity to. God's the author and giver of life. He is the author and constructor of blessing. Do you think God wants to bless you and your children? He does. He does. And the weird thing is, He didn't base those blessings on how good or how bad a mom you are. He doesn't base blessings on how good or how bad a Christian I am. You know the weirdest thing in the Bible that I still can't get my head around is He let Judas come to the Lord's Supper table. It says a lot for me. It says a lot for you. It says a lot for us. Don't let this day beat you down. Don't let this day distract you. Don't let this day overwhelm you. Let this day be a celebration of God, the warrior, regrouping and re-equipping the quiver in whatever form or fashion He's given you, looking for victory. Can you do that? Remember what I said, works not just for moms, works for all of us. Have you ever tried to shoot a bow, though? And I always loved this. Back where I grew up, people would bow fish. You ever tried to bow fish? Bow fishing is a weird deal because you don't aim where the fish is. If you aim where the fish is, you're going to miss the fish. Did you know that? The water gives a kind of a reflective event, and you will shoot over the fish every time. You learn to shoot where the fish is, not where you perceive the fish to be. See, you want to know the moral of today's message? Aim for what God says you are, where you are, who you are, how you are, not by what you perceive it to be. Not by what the world tells you it should be. This is just between us. But there's a reason they say that Satan is the author and giver of lies. That he's the father of lies. Listen to what God says and live by it. Father God, I thank you so much that we can celebrate not only the joys of moms and the blessedness they are, but Lord, that we can celebrate being your children. Lord, I'm so thankful that we are part of your family. Show us how to walk toward you, to be receptive to the flight that you put us on, to, Lord, to seek and to serve in a way that gives you victory. And we will